you.
Yesterday afternoon I took a call from John. He's a dad whose son really doesn't want him to talk to me or do anything about his predicament. But John thought it was important to tell his story, and it's about when a union can sign up a child and how much pressure can a child feel they're being put under in having to sign a document. John's the dad. Good morning, John.
Yeah, good morning, Madonna. How are you?
Well, thank you. Just tell me the story.
Well, we had the local retail outlet of Macca's open in Jimboomba a month or so ago, where they employ a large number of local kids, which is fantastic, and those kids get to go to a orienteering day before they start their work. When they got to the orienteering day, they were approached by a representative from the Shop Distributive and Allied Employees Association. They were given a whole lot of forms to sign. They were spoken to very briefly about the union and how the union could do things for them and give them lots of little leaflets of discounts for tyres and accommodation and things like that. They were told that they didn't have to join the union, but the union could do lots for them. My son himself felt quite intimidated, and he wasn't sure what to do. He didn't know anything about the union. He didn't want to make a fuss, and he was really quite, I wouldn't call it distressed. He was upset about it when he got home, to the point where he didn't want to discuss it at all. And he signed the form.
And did his colleagues, his friends, sign the forms too?
Well, now, after speaking to a couple of parents, and I've asked him, I've quizzed him about it, he said probably the vast majority did. He saw lots of them do it, and we're talking 40 children at least on those two. It was a Saturday and a Sunday.
What age, John?
They aged between 15 and 16, and I was just talking to him again this morning to make sure he had his facts right, and he said, look, Dad, at least 50% of those would have been under 16.
Were the documents being handed out by the union or the retailer?
No, they were being handed out by the union representative, who that's fine, and they have a right to be there, and that's whatever. But the point I was disappointed in was that apparently they had to send a letter home to parents asking if this was okay. That part of the form had been torn off, and none of the parents that I've spoken to, a few parents, none of the parents that I've spoken to received that form at all. No one's ever seen it. One of the parents I've spoken to has since rung this union and said, well, I don't want my child in the union, I want to resign. They said, well, you'll have to do it in writing. I just don't believe it's good enough. And I sort of thought, well, I'll look into this a little bit further, and I rang the local legal association, the Law Society, asked some advice, and they said, well, as far as they're concerned, a document signed by a child under 16 is not a legal binding contract anyway. But in the meantime, they're taking $5 a week out of my kid's pay, which he was a bit surprised about. He knew it was going to cost him $5. But when I said, well, hey, listen, Sam, that's $250 a year at least, mate, he was in shock.
Does it matter to the retailer whether your son is a union member or not?
Absolutely not, and they've gone out of their way to do the right thing and ensure they have told the kids, listen, you do not have to do this, it is entirely up to you. They've been fantastic with it.
You've mentioned a couple of other parents. Are they equally annoyed or upset, whatever the word is, about this as you are?
I know a couple of them that are more upset than I am.
All right, and your son begged and pleaded with you not to do anything.
Absolutely. He really feels quite intimidated by it. He was very, very concerned that had I said anything to anyone about it, it was going to affect his employment opportunities with them. And I assured him that, look, that's not the case. There are other regulations and other things in place, just morals for a start, that would ensure that sort of thing wouldn't happen.
All right, John, stay with me. Chris Ketter is the Queensland Branch Secretary of the Shop Distributive and Allied Employees Association. Chris, thanks for your time this morning.
Good morning, Madonna.
Are you signing up teenagers under the age of 16?
Yes, we are. And look, let me just get to some of the points that John has just mentioned about the incident that occurred on the 11th of September. The first I heard about it, Madonna, was when you contacted me yesterday to alert me to the fact that there were some complaints about it.
But someone in your union has been told because a parent called the union.
Well, it hasn't come to my attention.
Okay.
And John has only sent the email yesterday following your phone call to me, so I've just become aware of the situation now. The incident occurred on the 11th of September. I'm told there are about 25 to 30 employees of various ranges, and I would agree that probably a good proportion of them were teenagers. But there were people in their 30s and 40s as well, because some of those people did join up. The SDA organiser gave a 15-minute presentation. He mentioned the fees, the role of the union, the discounts that we offer, and mentioned that it's not compulsory, and I think John has been good enough to acknowledge that. Then there was a management representative present at all times during the course of the session, and at the end of the session, the management representative quite rightly said it's not compulsory and people can take it home if they want to take the form home. A number of people did not join. So,
what about this?
Absolutely no insinuation here of any intimidation whatsoever.
All right, let's go through a couple of those things. Is there usually a letter signed by a parent if the child is under 16?
No, people have the right to join at that time, and they can take it home and discuss it with their parents. Now,
so no, let me be specific because I don't understand that answer. When you sign up someone under 16, are you as a union required to get parental support?
No, I don't believe we are. And let me just explain a misconception that John has, which I think is quite, I think it goes to his concern, and I can, as a parent myself, I can understand his concern based on a couple of things that he said. He mentioned that he's up for $5 a week, which is $250 a year. There is no joining fee joining the SDA. There is no minimum period of time which people sign up to be a union member for. They only pay union fees in the weeks in which they work. So if John's son is not working at a particular week, he's not paying a single cent. He can resign without notice at any time. John is correct. We do require that resignation in writing. We can't have people just ring up and, you do get pranks from time to time about things like that. So you've got to have an email. John's done the right thing and sent us an email. We have actioned his resignation straight away.
All right, I think it's more an age issue. Did your representative ask if the young people were under 16?
No, we didn't. No, there's a range.
Should you?
I don't believe that's relevant.
So how early can you sign up a teenager? At what age?
Well, Madonna, we have a role negotiating the wages and conditions of all of the employees that work for McDonald's.
Sure.
The company recognises that we have a constructive role to play, and our organisers are in the stores every day. Now, if you're trying to suggest to me that we can't sign up a young person who approaches us...
No, I'm just asking you a question, given that the legal advice John said he had was that a contract with a child under the age of 16 is not valid, and that there was a letter with the pack that could be taken home to parents, but it wasn't on John's and it wasn't on other kids. I'm just asking, is there a minimum age where someone can join a union?
No, but we do. The letter that John's referring to is
Yes.
the letter that we do allow people to take it home, and it's just a letter that indicates to the parent that their son or daughter has joined the union, and just sets out for the benefit of the parent that the member has the right to resign at any stage. There is no minimum period in which the person has to.
But it they must resign in writing.
They simply have to send us an email.
Yes, and did McDonald's invite you along on that day for that training day?
Yes, they did.
John, you're still with me. Does that answer your questions?
Look, it does, and I congratulate Chris on his reply. However, really the issue here is the legality of it all. I have been in touch with the Law Society. They were very, very clear. A contract of any form between a child under the age of 16 years of age is not a valid and binding document. So, fine, join these people up, give them that advice. But when you're doing it with children under the age of 16, there are lots of things I cannot do with children under the age of 16, and anyone can do with children under the age of 16. Why should the union be any different? I believe they should have taken on more responsibility if they weren't aware that that was the law. They should have made themselves aware of the law and done it the right way. Had we have had all this happen the right way, there probably would never have been a problem.
And what do you say to that, Chris?
Oh, I think there has been a couple of misunderstandings in this particular case. And look, our union is very conscious of the fact that for many people, our union is the first experience that they will have joining a union. So we go out of our way to make it a positive experience for people.
Is there an argument, though, parents' permission should be sought if a child is under 16? Or you don't think that is an issue?
because people have the right to resign at any stage, as I've indicated, and people only pay a fee in the week in which they work. So we've never pursued a member because they haven't paid fees. Usually it's done by payroll deductions, and there's no sort of ongoing obligation. In fact, most of our members never resign because they simply are deemed not to be a member anymore once they come off the payroll deduction system. So we are a very high turnover organisation, people joining and leaving all the time. And it's a very straightforward process. There is no binding contract on a young person. They
All right.
can resign at any stage.
Chris Ketter, thank you.
Okay.
That's Chris Ketter, the Queensland Branch Secretary of the Shop Distributive and Allied Employees Association. And John, I gather from that your son has now resigned?
He has resigned, yeah.
And is he talking to you?
Yeah, he's talking to me. But what I'd like, Madonna, the other ridiculous issue of what Chris has just mentioned there about wages and times, what he fails to recognise is that some of these kids might only work 8 hours a week. And they might do that every week, and they are doing that every week. So 8 hours a week at $10 an hour, $80, he's taking $5 membership out of their pay. They're devastated.
Yeah, I guess this is but as he says, they can resign at any time.
They can, but
Do you think other children will?
I'm absolutely certain they will.
Yeah, all right.
I really don't believe they were given a good enough opportunity to understand what the process was about. Having said that, I mean, give them that opportunity and then it's up to them or their parents. But I really think they should probably look at the way they've structured their whole process of going and signing on these kids. There's got to be a better way of doing it or a more effective, efficient way of doing it.
All right, John, thank you for your call.
Thank you, Madonna.
That's John, whose son is no longer a member of that union.